Good day, folks. Jonathan Milam here, and I've got a friend from mine in Charleston by the name of Dave. And we also have a very special guest. You might recognize, if you can tell by the stylings on this horn, yes, indeed, it is a Martin Committee. From what year?
1947 or 1946.
I never thought I would find anything older than me. Great horn. I'm going to play on it just a second, and then I'm going to talk to Dave about the history of this horn. It is, that's the thing with vintage horns. It's so fascinating. When I hold them, I find myself wondering how many people have played this. How many hours have they labored with it? Of course, this is in extraordinary condition. So it certainly wasn't abused, but to be able to get some of the historic details is certainly a great plus. All right, the Martin Committee. All right, minus the occasional user error. What a neat horn. Now, Dave, what was the story? How did you get acquainted with this horn?
So I was in grade school in a suburb of Detroit, Michigan, and in fourth grade they let us start band. And so I rented a cornet for a couple months when it looked like I was going to stick with it. Mm-hmm. My dad got with a gentleman. They sang in the church choir together, and we bought it from Mr. John Ford. I think it's John A. Ford. And when you look inside the case and flip up the little storage area, he used a white paint or some kind of a marker and put John A. Ford. His name's still under there.
Is that right?
Yeah. And he had played in dance bands with it.
Okay.
He was probably in his 20s or 30s then. So this would be 1968. Horn was about 20 years old and I was 10. So I played it for about 2 or 3 years. And then my dad said, if you look at your band, there's probably like a third of the players are playing trumpet, another third are playing clarinet, the rest are playing flute, and a couple of us sundry instruments. And he said, the band director would really love you if you wanted to volunteer to try another instrument. So I started on the French horn. Mm-hmm. And then I got picked up on that, and this guy sat in nice storage, but I really didn't end up playing it that much, the occasional thing at church and things like that. Mm-hmm. And then later on, so I went in the Navy after school, after college. I was in the Navy, and I moved back to Dayton, Ohio. I was nearby there, and I got it out again and said, hey, I'll play this with the local church orchestra. Mm-hmm. And the finish wasn't really great on it then. Actually, I probably should have never had it touched, but I took it to Buddy Rogers Music, and they have this place, Anderson Plating, over in Anderson, Indiana. Came back looking like beautiful, brand new, most beautiful it's ever looked. And they did a really, really exquisite job on refinishing it. And played with them for a little bit, and then they heard, oh, you play French horn? Oh, wow, we've got a French horn here for you to play. And I ended up buying one, so when we did some Christmas things where we needed a trumpet quartet or a trio, I would play it. But mostly it's sat very lovingly in my closet.
Well, I got to say, and we got in touch with some mutual friends, and of course the committee, it's really a historic instrument, one of the holy grails in the trumpet family. Maybe a good Martin Committee and an old super recording are two of the horns I think that really are a lot of collectors' ideals. But this one is in very good condition. There is just a little bit of lacquer wear, almost gives it a aura of authenticity. Of course, Anderson's plating, you couldn't send it to a better place.
Right.
In fact, I emailed them last night a request. They're still in business, as far as I know, as far as silver, gold plating, and of course, relacquering, as you had done They're the standard. You know, that's the max. And it's very interesting that Buddy Rogers' music is still going in Dayton, right?
They are. They are. In fact, to double check that, I called them and said, "Oh yeah, 1990," which is when I had it done. He goes, "Hey, there's a guy in our repair shop. He's been here since then."
Is that right?
Yeah. And I said, "Hey, would this have been sent to Anderson Play?" He said, "Oh, most certainly. Absolutely, no doubt in my mind."
Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Now, of course, the script on this, for those of you that know, I'm not sure you'll be able to see that too well. You know, never can tell how it's coming out exactly. That's about as close as I can get it. And the case is in extraordinary condition as well. Not quite as fantastic as the horn, but very close. But we've got here also an original Martin mouthpiece. And what surprised me, I've probably seen these for sale, but I don't know if you can see it. It's got that very unusual and liked Martin logo wrapped around this part of the mouthpiece, just under the cup there. And I thought that was neat. Now, I don't have my glasses on. Does that say for this mouthpiece, is that a 0 or a 10?
That's a 10.
That is a 10. Okay, I could only see the 0 earlier. That explains, I usually play the rim ID of a box 7. And I told him, I said, I feel like that's probably closer to a 10.5. And if it's a 10, you know, that would probably explain it. Very interesting. Now, another thing I was wondering when we were talking about you picking the horn up, when you got the horn, so you would have been 10 years old, right? What was the feeling in the band? You know, you got a Martin. You know, were Binges popular? Were Stradivarius popular? Was the Martin, you know, a little beneath that, or did it already have the mystique that it's got now?
I'm not sure band school kids really
Just
knew.
didn't remember like that.
Didn't remember. It always sounded good. I always got great comments on my playing, even from the start. Everybody's like, "Wow, how long have you been playing?"
Yeah.
So it always sounded really good. So I think I had a Rolls Royce and didn't know it.
Well, and I used to follow after a guy in trumpet, Harold, which is a great trumpet forum, Michael McGovern. He was a top commercial trumpeter in New York City. We corresponded some, and when he would talk about the Martin Committee, he always discouraged people from buying them because he said it's so hard to get a vintage horn that is in really good condition. This one, you probably have the accumulated use, it seems to me, of a very few years. That would be my guess. The valve action is, I've got a new box Strad 190-43, and it really feels like that. A good, you know, you've got substance there, you know, there's no wave, the compression is good. Now this is the bore size. You measured that at about
451, 452. So that's apparently
okay.
the medium bore.
Right. Now, for me, I like that. I can fill a medium large bore 460, 459 bore without a lot of problem. 470, I've worked with that. It's not a problem. But if you're doing a 4-hour gig, I've always, in fact, I mentioned to Dave, the medium and small medium bore cons and Kings, the Silver Sonic, and the 445, 443, 448 bore was so comfortable because that you could fill. This one does seem to get that Chet Bakerish tone. I know he's certainly, all of the jazz greats played the Martin Committee, you know, Maynard Ferguson, I think Dizzy played it for a while, Miles Davis, on and on and on. In fact, more probably played it than didn't play it. But you still, I don't know how you can get such a pretty tone, but I guess you might call it that Martin sound. And I'm going to use a different mouthpiece, play for just a little bit longer. This is Trent Austin's TATF. So we're getting into a deepish V, and we'll try that same song, Summertime, and then I've got one other mouthpiece. We might even give the original Martin mouthpiece a shot as well. That does have a nice tone. I'm going to take one mouthpiece that's really, this is a trumpet flugel. In fact, it is a GR64. What do they call that? The FD. So this is your flugel trumpet mouthpiece. And it certainly should get a nice, creamy, dark sound, especially with this horn. One thing that did surprise me, and it was this Martin mouthpiece. If you can see, that is really a relatively shallow mouthpiece. In fact, that's, what would I liken it to? It's not a screech, but it is definitely leans towards a commercial lead application. And while we think, again, the Martin Committee today, Chris Bodie, of course, plays one, perhaps the most popular pop trumpeter in the world. And in fact, a really neat story about that. I read one time that a guy had a great Martin Committee, and he would play it, and he knew he wasn't the greatest player in the world. But he thought his horn was so good, he took it one time to a Chris Bodie concert. And he went up to a security man afterwards and he said, "I need to see Mr. Bodie." And they said, "Sir, that's not likely." And he said, "Tell him I have got a great Martin Committee here. He wants to play it. He wants to see me." And he left that night without the Martin Committee. Chris Bodie bought it. Wow. And that's one of the ones that he uses. But we think of that in the pop, and of course, Chris Bodie's sound very dark, almost flugelish. But this Martin is not made for that kind of sound. That tells me the horn has breadth. It's not limited to one genre. It's not limited to one tone. There's a lot that this horn can do. And I'll tell you, with this mouthpiece, it does not come out as a dark, breathy tone. It really will show you the other side of professional playing, if a pro were playing it. Well, I've enjoyed this. I don't know how many times I'll have an opportunity to play a great Martin Committee, and love the way they did this third slide course on the water keys. You've got what they call the alligator clips or trombone style, but nice action on that third slide. Very, very easy to work. Nothing on the first slide. That's just the excellence of tuning. All right, David, anything else you can think about when we discuss this, talk about it?
I've always enjoyed this horn. It's just I don't do it justice keeping it in a closet.
And it's funny, I started off playing French horn in middle school. And I brought it home, and my dad was very disappointed. He'd always wanted me to play trumpet. He played trombone. And so when I did get out of high school, was going to some further education. I picked up trumpet. And at that point, he was thrilled. But I've never had the range on the trumpet that I had on the French horn. I just got used to that resistance, that deep mouthpiece, the way the whole thing worked out. And that's the one regret that I have about the French horn. My range was so much better. My endurance was so much better. When you get to the trumpet, it's just much more an upfront. It seems to me it's just a bam. It's all right here. Where the French horn, I think they say it's about 27 feet long if you unwrap it.
About right. Oh yeah. That's a lot of air in there.
A lot of tubing that you have to make your way through, and a fascinating instrument. But it's interesting, you started off with a trumpet, your second one wound up being such a great instrument, then you gravitated towards French horn. Okay, folks, you just might see this for sale somewhere if you're watching closely. As always, it's been a pleasure. Appreciate the comments if you have thoughts, ideas, and do take care of yourself. If there's someone near, take care of them as well. Always a pleasure. We love the thumbs up. Take care and have a great day.